So this movie is called Captain America: Civil War.
Yes.
It feels like an Avengers movie more than a Captain America movie.
Yes.
Why do you think
Um,
that is?
it is because it is. I call this the third Avengers movie. Because you have Avengers Age of Ultron, you have Captain America Civil War, then you have Avengers Infinity War, and then you have Avengers Endgame. This is a Captain America movie insofar as it is dealing with something specific to Cap,
Mhm.
but this is definitely a proof of concept for Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. When I first watched this movie, I realized really quickly that Marvel wanted to see if they could do a huge ensemble cast and not make it clunky. And they did a really good job. I mean, this movie does so much heavy lifting. It's not too long. How long is it? What's the running time? Like two, it has to
It
be 2:15, 2:30, right?
it's yeah, it's somewhere right around there. It's
So it's
like
not
2:30 with credits.
Yeah, so it's not incredibly long. It has all these different characters. And part of it is too is like we know these characters. We've seen them before. So we don't have to get reintroduced to them. They can just have these little moments here and there.
Right.
And I think that's what the movie does. Like it gives us 2 or 3 like 4 minutes here with these characters, 3 minutes here. They give them some dialogue to create some kind of personal space, but we never have to get really down to the dumps. The only place where we have to spend an enormous amount of time as far as the movie is concerned is with Spider-Man, because we have to reintroduce Spider-Man, which is a whole thing. So this and it's hard too because I guess if people ask what's the best Captain America movie, you could probably say it's Winter Soldier. Because this movie isn't really a Captain America movie that much.
Yeah.
But I still think that Chris Evans pulls a lot of weight in the movie. I still think that there are some elements of Captain America that are highlighted somewhat. But you can definitely see a lot of places where Tony Stark slash Robert Downey Jr. is like just shoving his way back in, man. Like he's like,
Right.
I am not retired. I am not leaving. I am in this movie, man, and I'm doing it. You gotta accept the fact that Iron Man's here. And it is what it is.
You brought up recently that Kevin Feige said they're not doing those long-term contracts anymore.
Uh-huh. Well, that's what he said he was thinking about doing those, or they're not.
Okay.
So who knows? It could be
Yeah.
they might not do it for everybody, but not doing these long-term contracts is going to affect them.
Oh yeah.
Um, but here we have. I mean, look, I'm just looking at the IMDb. I'm just going to read off the list of the top one. These aren't even all the characters.
Okay.
Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Don Cheadle, Jeremy Renner, Chadwick Boseman, Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Rudd, Emily Van Champ, Tom Holland, Daniel Bruhl, Frank Grillo, William Hurt, Martin Freeman, Marissa Tomei. Like what? And like so many different. It's full of people. Like just logistically, like, have you ever tried to plan like a house party or like a wedding? Like
Yeah.
how do you get all these people into a sound studio and get them in costume and have them do their lines? Like I don't know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, there was another movie that was similar in the amount of uh, just recognizable names, but I think this one's got to beat. All right. My first question for you is about the red book that has a star on it at the very beginning of the movie.
Hmm.
Um, I, basically, I guess it's the manual for the Winter Soldier in this movie.
Yes.
Does that come from the comics? Is there any kind of a greater history about that book?
No. No.
Okay.
It's strictly for the movie, and the idea is that and if you look in the in Winter Soldier, there's no ideas that the Winter Soldier is being kind of like used like hypnotic suggestion type deal. We actually get a lot of this stuff from Black Widow. If you watch Widow, they add a lot of information about how the technology they used to control people in Black Widow was taken from the Winter Soldier project. I
Right.
don't know. Yeah. So the Winter Soldier project allows like
Yeah,
you know have
the red room I think was set up because of the success that they had with the Winter Soldier.
mhm. And so a lot of this in this movie in particular, they set up the idea that that Bucky is it has so you can say a few keywords to Bucky and then he'll do whatever you say. And so no, that's not from the comic.
That's like it's not a few. It's a it's a long list of
It's a long
keywords that you have
list.
to say to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is it's a really interesting list. One of the words is homecoming, and then the Spider-Man movie is called Homecoming, which is
Right.
I'm I'm pretty sure that some Marvel exec was like, make him say homecoming.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
why? Just do it. Like
Exactly. Yep.
It's
I'm
funny.
pretty sure you're right. Yeah. In our last podcast, we talked about how good Marvel is getting at de-aging their actors.
Yeah.
That was with Michael Douglas and a young version of Hank Pym.
Hmm.
They did an even better job in this movie with Robert Downey Jr. and a young version of Tony Stark who looks like he's straight out of a '80s movie.
Hmm.
It's kind of insane how good they
Yeah, I
are at
mean,
doing that.
his parents looked good, but Tony Stark looked weird. But I guess he looked accurate. But yeah, it's just so
I
insane
mean, he
how.
looked. It looked like you could believe that that was a person in the room, though.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but do remember, like, we are saying how good they are at de aging, but do remember that in Captain America, still they somehow put Chris Evans his face on this little skinny kid and made it look
Yeah.
completely believable. So I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it's not totally out of realm of comprehension that could do that. But yeah, they're doing really well. And just to add on to this, no, the Winter Soldier did not kill Tony Stark's parents in the comics. Just to let that in there. That's not comic accurate as well.
Okay. Yeah. Robert Downey. I just checked. Robert Downey Jr. was in Less Than Zero, that movie.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think like that's the movie that shot into my head as I was watching this last night is he looks like it looks like they just lifted him out of another timeline from that era and put him in this movie. I,
Man,
I was I was really impressed by it.
I don't know what we're going to do when these like I hopefully hopefully the government has like some way to make sure that this kind of technology isn't just getting out everywhere. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, Marvel Studios can do it, but it would take millions of dollars for someone to take, like, let's say President Obama's face and do something with that massively on a massive scale. But we're not that far away from it. Like at some point someone's going to put it onto an iPhone app that's going to look that's like bizarre, and then we're all going to probably die. you
I
know?
mean, they can already do it to where the average person looking at it can't tell a difference
Well, I don't,
pretty quickly. We're really
uh,
going to be in bad shape when experts can't tell that a video has been doctored.
yeah, like I don't know what we're going to do. At that point, I think I'm just going to pack it up, move to a cabin, and just be like, I don't want to be around you guys anymore.
Right.
I just
That's my
don't want to
plan.
do it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so before we get started, I know you have some questions and stuff, and that's great. But I want to kind of establish that this movie's doing two different things. So first, I want to tell the listeners about the original Civil War comic. So in the original Civil War comic, what happened was that a group of people called the New Warriors, which was Speedball, Normal Rita, and a few others, went to some kind of suburb in the Midwest, I think, to find some supervillains, and they were part of a reality TV show. So they had a camera crew in the comics. They had a camera crew follow them as they were going after these supervillains, and they were on TV. And the supervillains were like, and at the time, some of the new warriors were like, we shouldn't really go after these guys. They're kind of higher powered than we need to take out. Like, we don't really need to do this. And one of the characters named Speedball, who was the leader at the time, was like, no, we need the ratings. We need people to see us do this. Let's do it. And they went after them. And one of the characters, one of the supervillains, ended up exploding and killing the entire town. It was like thousands of people died. And at that point, the mutants of the world had a tragedy where there weren't as many mutants in the world as normal, and that kind of goes to Wanda Maximoff. But there were some other things that happened, and the government was like, you know what, this is over, and they created a superhero registration act, which was if you're a superhero or you have superpowers, you have to register for the government, or you have to stop, you have to retire, or you can be arrested. And
Is
this
that
kind
where
of
the Sokovian Accords come
yes.
from?
Yes,
Okay.
100%. So this actually calls back to something called the Mutant Registration Act, which was an X-Men concept where the government wanted to get mutants to register. So if you were a mutant, you'd have to go to the government, register, and say, "Hey, I'm a mutant." But mutants, of course, didn't want to do that because once you create a register of mutants, then the government can come after you. And so what happened with the Superhero Registration Act is that some superheroes like Iron Man, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, and a few others, lots of others actually, a lot of them said, "Okay, this is the right thing to do. If we register, the government will still let us be superheroes, but there's a couple of different requirements. One, you have to, do what the government says, and then two, you have to reveal your identity. So, like,
Mhm.
so for example, a really tr- amazing moment happened. I think in the third issue of the comic is Spider-Man swings on stage, takes off his mask, and says, "My name is Peter Parker. I've been Spider-Man since I was 15 years old." And
What?
yeah, and dude, I can't tell you how traumatic that was. It's like you have read comics your entire life. Spider-Man joined the Avengers in that time period, and
Mhm.
and Iron Man became kind of a mentor to him, and Iron Man convinced him to do it. And the idea was if Spider-Man can reveal his identity, then more people will do it. And dude, like I was reading the comic and I got chills. Like Spider-Man has spent his entire life, Peter Parker has spent his entire life protecting his identity. And once he
Right.
takes off his mask and says who he is, everything changes like completely. And this is a moment where he and Mary Jane are still married.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. But at
That's
some
so
point,
weird. I didn't really know that the mentorship between Iron Man and Spider-Man was there in the comics. I thought they just made that up for the MCU.
no, so Spider-Man joins the Avengers, and then Iron Man recognizes how smart Spider-Man is, Peter Parker is, and they start working together, and they start, being, like doing a lot of stuff together, and then eventually Iron Man's like, you know what, you can be a better hero than you are. Like you do good work as Spider-Man, but you can be much more. And Spider-Man gets a new suit and everything. And it's really cool. But at some point, Peter Parker realizes that he was wrong. He rejects it, and he ends up leaving the Iron Man Avengers and joins the Captain America Avengers. So Captain America and a few others say, "We don't like the Registration Act. We refuse to do it," and they go underground. And so you have a group of heroes. Like I think they call themselves the New Avengers, which is led by Captain America, and a group of Avengers called the Mighty Avengers, led by Iron Man. So you have two different groups of Avengers, and in the comics, they do fight. They fight viciously. There's like a major fight between the two of them. I mean, at one point, at the first fight, Iron Man almost beats Captain America to death. If you When you watched the movie at the end of Captain America: Civil War, do you remember where Iron Man tells Friday to analyze Captain America's fight patterns?
Um, no.
So if you watch the movie, there's a scene where Captain America is just beating up on Iron Man, beating him up, and Fry's like, "You can't beat Captain America hand to hand. You can't do it." And then Iron Man's like, analyze his fight patterns. And so the Iron Man suit analyzes Captain America's fighting abilities and then beats him, right? He
Oh, I
catches
do
the
remember that
shield.
now. Yeah.
So in the comics that does
So the
happen.
suit was actually doing some of the moving for
Yes.
him. Okay.
No, the suit was doing all the moving for him. So
Yeah.
in the comics that does happen. Like Iron Man says, "I studied your fight abilities," and then he almost kills Captain America. And there's at the end of that issue. At the time, Thor was gone and nobody knew what Thor was, but then he shows back up, and then it turns out that it wasn't Thor. It was a android created by Iron Man and Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards. And the Thor android kills this guy named Goliath. This huge, like this guy who had resizing tech from Hank Pym. The Thor like shoots a lightning bolt through his chest and kills him. It's like what? And like it's just like so much stuff like this in this comic. It's really traumatic. The original Civil War comic changed the Marvel comics. It changed it completely because it's not like at some point they all got back together and started hugging. No, at the end of Civil War, they still are split up. It sets up for Captain America to get murdered. Spider-Man is on the run and has to like stay hidden. So many other Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman from from the Fantastic Four almost have a divorce. Like it just keeps like it just changes everything. And at one point, because of all the stuff in the Civil War, Harry Osborn, the Green Goblin from the Spider-Man comics, ends up becoming Secretary of Defense and ends up like corrupting the Avengers. It brings supervillains in to become Avengers. It's a really dark time, and this lasts for a long, long time. It's one of these things that happens, and it's like at the time the editors and publishers were like, everything you know about the Marvel comic universe is about to change. And that we were like, yeah, whatever. You say that every summer. But
Mhm.
no, it does completely change. And part of me is probably one of the reasons why I stopped reading comics for a while. It's because it was just too much change. It was just too much. And like
Right.
even the feeling of comic books, especially from Marvel comics, even the feeling of Marvel comics hasn't settled down yet. It still feels it doesn't feel like it used to feel. It used to feel like you could read a comic book and it didn't have long-term implications. Like you didn't have to sense the problems of other comic books. But
Yeah, like
like now,
comics used to see. I mean, I'm not a comic book reader, but this is my outside impression was that it was kind of like The Simpsons. The Simpsons has been going for how many years, and the kids are the same
yeah.
age. You
Yeah,
know,
no, yeah, yeah. But
nothing ever. You've always got the Simpsons. They're
yeah,
always there. They're what they are.
yeah, and the Civil War comic changed everything. And just watched that way. So the movie itself doesn't represent that as much, but the Civil War movie, Captain America: Civil War, does change a lot. It does totally fracture. It does. You know what? It does change a lot. The ramifications are pretty noticeable. So yeah, if you take the comic and then you take the movie, they represent each other pretty well. That was a long rant. I think I represented it pretty good.
Well, when you first started out, I was thinking about how every now and then you'll pitch like you should really read this series of comics. And I was like, man, this really sounds like something I'd like to actually try to read. But
Oh,
then
okay.
as you kept going on, it sounds like it's too much. Like it's how many issues does this span across?
It's 6 issues.
Okay.
It's a 6-issue self-contained, but there are a lot of spin-off. So whenever they do these big summertime comic like things,
Hmm.
they have a lot of different spin-offs and different series, but they have a 6 contained issues. I can send you a
Okay.
link to the 6 contained issues, and you can definitely get it. It's worthwhile. It's worth even if you don't know anything about comics, you'll read it and understand. Wow, this is traumatic.
Okay, that's
Um,
definitely something we should put in the show notes then.
yeah, I'll do that.
That does sound like it could be interesting.
Mhm. And
Okay.
I feel like I feel like that Marvel always knew this was coming in the cinematic universe, and
Hmm.
there's always been tension between Chris Evans, Steve Rogers, and Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, and I like that the tension comes to a head here. It feels real, but the emotional issue where Winter Soldier kills Tony Stark's mom and dad, and that's why there's tension between Steve and Tony. That doesn't happen in the comics. So that's
Okay.
important to know.
I feel like this sort of thing works really well in live action movies because you got to have something that kind of triggers the group breaking up or people being, ending their contracts basically with the movie studio. So you can bring in some fresh actors.
Yeah,
But
I mean, if
as a comic book reader, it's got to be very frustrating.
yeah, I think so. And to be honest with you, the tension between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers in the comics has always been there somewhat, but not as apparent as it is in the movies. But what I also like about Civil War is that this is a place where we finally understand that there is a plan, and we understand that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a plan to get us to Infinity War and Endgame, and Civil War is like that. Is like this movie is pinnacle. Like if we don't have this movie, we don't have the rest of them. And so I really feel like this movie does a really good job getting us ready for all the next big movies.
Yeah, I didn't remember this being as uh uh the rift being as big as it is in the movie. I
Hmm.
mean, it's called Civil War. I should have remembered that, I guess, but it seemed, you know, watching these movies the first time, I was definitely not making all the connections between them. I was just kind of watching each one almost like a standalone, movie. Not really making the connections, but getting some of them. Like, obviously, I know Sam Wilson. We saw him in Ant-Man, and we saw him in earlier things and things like that. But rewatching these and doing this podcast with you, I am able to see this movie in a completely different way than the way I saw it the first time. And I think I've now only seen it twice. So I saw it once when it first came out, and once now after we've done the podcast. And
I've seen this movie like easily 10 times.
yeah,
I don't know why I've watched it so much. Is this one like when I take plane trips? I watch movies on the plane.
hmm
'Cause I get a little nervous on planes sometimes, and so these movies calm me down. I think this movie is like kind of like a nice little piece of cake for me. I get to sit down and I know what's going to happen, and it's fun. So I just push play and take off. So I kind of this is one of the reasons why I guess
right.
I do that.
I think either one of my early or my very first plane trips, I took a Rainbow Six movie with me, or not a Rainbow Six movie, a Rainbow Six book with me to read on the
Mm.
plane, and I start reading it, and and it's about like a
Oh
plane being
no,
hijacked. I'm like,
uh,
oh my god, why did I bring this book?
that's so funny.
But
That's
yeah,
so
it's kind
funny.
of crazy.
But there's so much to this movie. Like, so for example, in this movie, they have that big fight at the airport, and the Vision accidentally hits the War Machine suit, and that's how Rhodey gets hurt.
Yeah,
In the comics, that doesn't happen, but Rhodey does get hurt in the comics. He does become, I don't know if it's paralyzed, but he does become dependent on the suit at one point, and so that's accurate. They
yeah.
also plant the seeds for Wanda and Vision to have a romantic relationship, so that's in the
hmm
comics. What else? Wanda. So this is I don't know if we've had this debate or not. Maybe I think I had this debate on Twitter. So we understand that Crossbones, who is in the comics, Crossbones, who and Captain America fight. That
I'm
dude.
glad you brought him up because that was one thing I wanted to say too. Is I'm making all these connections. Definitely, the first time I saw this movie, that was just some random bad guy
Yeah, but
to me.
he
I
didn't know he
had
was
I
from
had
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I had no idea who he was. I didn't know he was from Winter Soldier. He was from the first Captain America too, wasn't he? Or was it
Hmm.
just Winter Soldier?
Just Winter Soldier.
Okay, yeah. Um, yeah, I didn't know who that guy was, so it was kind of cool
Yeah.
seeing this again and seeing that. Oh,
Oh, it's
that's
him.
and I actually know I know who he is and what his name is.
Yeah. So he ends up blowing himself up to kill Cap, and Wanda stops it from happening. She uses her abilities as a force field to stop him from exploding. But
Right.
then she has to make a choice. Does she keep him ground? So here's the three choices she has to make. One, does she stop the explosion? If she doesn't, she and Captain America and everybody on the ground dies. So she's like,
Exactly.
okay,
Right.
I will stop the explosion. But
hmm
now, what does she lift? So if she can't hold the field for long.
Right.
So she either can keep the field down on the ground and then it explodes and kills them, or she can lift it off the ground. She
hmm
does that, but then the field breaks and it kills the Wakandans in the building. And
Probably
listen,
nowhere near as many people as if she had not done anything or kept it on the ground.
yeah, and listen, I I understand what the movie is trying to convey, but if the movie is trying to convey that she's too powerful and she's like a weapon that needs to be controlled, because they did kind of say that, like, it's like she's under house arrest. She's like people are afraid of her. Like she doesn't establish that she's that powerful there.
Yeah, it's kind of
That's not a moment that says, "Hey, I'm super powerful." It's almost a moment, "Hey, I'm actually pretty weak." And if you look at what she could do later in WandaVision, she
mhm,
manipulates matter and energy and people's minds on a huge scale, right? She
right.
controls an
Right.
entire town for a number of, and she recreates her vision, and she also creates her children who have powers. The idea that she's not powerful is just very. I mean, I mentioned this on Twitter, and people were like, "Well, blah blah blah." And having to fight on Twitter is kind of pointless. I don't even know why I'm bringing it up.
It's
But the
just,
point,
they're just for fun. You're not going
yeah,
to
yeah,
change anything, but or
it's not.
rarely will you change with someone's mind.
It's not fun anyway. But like the idea that the movie says, "Oh, we need to establish that Wanda's dangerous," but then by her doing that, it's not established. Uh,
Yeah, it's a classic. It's the classic trolley problem, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, if I was Wanda, I'd be like, "This sucks. People died, but at the same time, like I did the best I could, and it's not
And
my
she saved way more people.
and it's not her fault." Like that's the
Right.
thing. Like she
Sh
didn't
she
jury
didn't
rig that
create the
bomb.
explosion. The explosion was already there.
Yeah,
The guy exploded.
yeah, so it's not her fault. So it's like it's a lot going on with that. But I understand what the show's trying to do. But I also think the movie doesn't know the movie doesn't say, "Hey, this is the reason." We also got that nice scene between Tony Stark and that mother who lost her son.
Mhm.
That establishes even more of the reason, right? It's like, okay, now we have Tony who thinks we're going too far. We have the Avengers making a huge mistake, and then we have we have Thunderbolt Ross coming in saying that they need to be restricted.
Well, and the whole it's called the Sokovian Accords, so it all goes back to,
Yeah,
the earlier movie where
Age of Ultron. Yeah,
Yeah, Age of Ultron, where Sokovia drops on,
yeah, and yeah.
kills a bunch of people, yeah.
If we had if we had six people who every time they show up, like thousands of an entire country gets destroyed or New
Yeah.
York's destroyed, like I think the government would we would have had a restriction a long, long time ago. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I was like when I saw what was the movie with New York? That was, the first Avengers movie,
the
right?
first one, yeah,
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, "Man, they could definitely." I mean, they did save a lot of people. If they hadn't done anything, basically the entire world would have been,
yeah.
either destroyed or enslaved. But on the other hand, they were pretty wanton in their destruction of New York.
Well, I mean,
Um,
if
I
you
felt that even more so than with the Sokovian thing because that's kind of another, almost another trolley problem, but not as clear cut as what happened with Wanda.
yeah, and I always think of it like this: like we have people in our society who don't have accountability, who like police officers, and I'm not trying to get anybody's feathers ruffled, but a lot of police officers mishandle their abilities to kind of they don't have any accountability and they abuse that.
Right.
So imagine someone who can lift a car, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
someone who has the technology to rocket through a city in seconds, or someone who's so skilled that they can shoot an arrow without looking, or or someone who is a robot or Wanda's abilities. Like if those people don't have a higher moral grounds, like imagine the destruction. And to be honest with you,
Yeah,
the
they
Marvel
can't all
movies,
be Captain America.
yeah, and to be honest with you, Marvel does a really good job of establishing that, hey, these people are superheroes, but they all have a moral core, you know. But imagine if, I mean, I don't know if you ever there's a show on I think Amazon Prime called Invisible. I haven't watched all of it, but it's an animated show, but it kind of highlights what would happen if we had superheroes in our society that didn't have morals, and it's like, oh my goodness. But anyway,
Hmm. Okay.
keep going.
This is just
I
a
don't know. I don't
question.
know if you've asked the question or not yet. So now's your turn.
Yeah, I don't I don't think I actually have.
We better get to it.
This is just a question for you as a comic book reader. All right.
Sure.
So this meant nothing to me, but so you mentioned already who died in that explosion.
Yeah.
It was the Wakandans.
Yeah.
Now it's it's them dying is when you first really hear that name, but as a comic book reader, how stoked were you to hear the Wakandans mentioned in the MCU?
Really, I mean, just to know that we're about to get Black Panther into the MCU, I'm really stoked. Like, I'm pretty excited. It took a while, but I mean, Black Panther's been in the comics for a very, very long time, and so to have him in there and to have Wakanda and the idea of vibranium and really have that whole, it just establishes that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to branch out and do even more stuff. So yeah, I'm super excited.
Okay.
Super
Yeah, I
sad.
thought it was really kind of. This is another one where they introduced a major character in a prior movie. I don't think I like that pattern.
Well, I mean, and to be honest with you, they so this movie has a couple different problems. One, they don't have enough superheroes to actually have a big fight scene just yet. They need to bring in probably two more. And so having, T'Challa show up as the Black Panther and then having Peter Parker show up as Spider-Man, that solves that problem. And two, I mean, people went to people went to this movie to see the premiere of the Black Panther. Like there was a lot of
Yeah.
people who's like, I'm going to see this just so I can see Black Panther. And then they said, okay, now I'm going to see and then you had people who saw Civil War and the people who saw Civil War because of the Black Panther. And those two groups said, man, I can't wait to see Black Panther because he was so cool in this movie. And so
Right.
I know how you feel about that, Mike, but Marvel and Disney have people who show people numbers and says when you
Right.
introduce a superhero in a superhero movie,
I
more
I
people
definitely
watch the
get it
next
from that
movie.
angle. I definitely get it
Yeah.
from that angle. But from just like the handling of the character is where I don't like it. I like to see. I mean, sometimes it makes sense, but sometimes it feels forced.
Yeah, there's nothing you can really do about that. It does feel there's a couple of different places that feels forced. And when you look at Spider-Man, um I
Like
remember seeing
Hawkeye in the first Thor movie is probably the most egregious
oh
example of
yeah,
that.
that was absolutely terrible. But when you look at Spider-Man, I don't know if you remember when the Civil War trailer first came out. I was in my office and I saw on Twitter, Civil War trailer's out. And I watched it and then I didn't see anything as far as spoilers. But then I saw at the very end that Spider-Man swung in. You have to remember that that Marvel sold their rights to Spider-Man to Sony, and no one knew that Marvel was going to buy him back. And so to see Spider-Man in a Marvel movie for the very first time with all these other people, just I was so excited. Like you don't even understand. Not just because it's Spider-Man, but also because finally Marvel got Spider-Man back when they can put him in these movies. Like it's really, really, really awesome.
Right. It was a
Just
few
incredible.
years too late though, because on the perfect way to have introduced Spider-Man would have been in the first Avengers movie when they are in New York.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, no, it would have been great,
Yeah.
but I mean, you got to do what you got to do, and I kind of feel like this was great. I mean, and I love Tom Holland as Peter Parker. I have
Hmm.
issues with the first two Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I don't really like this. I like him as Spider-Man.
I liked I
I
liked
d-
I liked the first one. I don't like
I
the second one.
yeah, I like the first one. Um, I like the first one. I definitely don't like the second one as much. But I think when I was rewatching this movie and seeing young Tom Holland in this movie, that made me even more disappointed with what they did with his standalone movies. Because, I grew up watching the Spider Man comics, or not comics, cartoon, right?
Mhm.
And my biggest problem with the Spider Man movies is we don't get to see Spider Man as your friendly neighborhood Spider Man.
Oh
Like
yeah, that's
he's
a
not
big
just swinging around New York and dealing with
yeah.
criminals and villains. That's what I want to see out of Spider Man.
No, that's a big complaint. A lot of people agree with you. A lot of people, and I think the next movie is going to address that. We have seen like the first movie, he's doing that a little bit, but I think that, and this is off we're actually getting sidetracked, so I'm gonna try to get us back on track. But I think that the Marvel cinematic, the MCU people are like, you had Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, and then you had Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Do you have 5 movies where Spider-Man's swinging through New York? How many more movies do you guys want? And so
I mean, as many as you can do.
and no, I agree with you.
That's
And
my
like,
answer.
no, the fantasy of Spider-Man is seeing him swing through New York. That is it. Like, if we don't
Right.
see him swinging through New York, then what's the fantasy? So
Yeah.
anyway, let's get back on track. You get
Well,
more.
one last thing before we get back on track is I just really wish that back when he was cast as Spider Man, Disney Plus existed and they could have at least done a series on Disney Plus where it's your friendly neighborhood Spider Man.
Yeah,
And
that
oh
would have
man,
been cool.
I really wish they could have done that. I guess they could still do it and de-age him in the series the same way they de-age Tony Stark in this movie.
Mhm.
So fingers crossed that happens. I highly doubt it, but that would be amazing. I would love it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah. All right. In this movie, so they're signing the Sokovian Accords, and I assume a UN building somewhere. And someone blows up a van outside. T'Challa sees it like a second before it actually happens, so he tells everybody to stand back. But he was the closest to the windows. He was closer to the windows than his father was. He jumps to try to save his father, and he's in midair when the explosion hits. So he actually gets like blown off to the side. However, his father dies, and he is apparently unscathed.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Cuz he has superpowers.
All right, tell me about the superpowers because I don't really remember those or understand them.
So, when we get to Black Panther, the movie, we can establish some more. But at some point, so the Black Panther is the guardian of Wakanda, and when you become Black Panther, you drink this like essence, this herb, and it gives you super hearing, it gives you better eyesight, it gives you super speed, it gives you super strength. There's more resilience. So think of it as you know how Captain America has a super soldier serum. It's like that, but a more
Okay.
organic version. And T'Chaka, his father, was a Black Panther at one point, but because he was getting older, gave up the serum. He stopped taking it, or he took something to get rid of the abilities and gave the abilities to his son. So,
Hmm.
that's why T'Challa is able to hear something wrong a second before it happens, and that's why he's able to jump. And it's also why he's able to survive the blast because he does have he is enhanced in that way.
Okay, well that does actually answer that for me because I had to rewind that a few times just to see what the heck happened and why he was totally okay. So
Hmm.
that explains it.
Hmm. There you go.
All right. We've got a character called Everett Ross in this
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
Is he related to Thunderbolt Ross?
No, Everett Ross is not related to Thunderbolt Ross, and the only reason Everett Ross is in that is because there was a early Black Panther comic where he worked for the UN, and he
He
worked for
being Black Panther.
no, Everett Ross worked for the UN, and
Okay.
Black Panther visited New York, and Everett Ross was in charge of making sure that Black Panther didn't get into trouble. It's actually that series of Black Panther is actually a lot of fun, and
Hmm.
so I kind of wish that I kind of wish the movies kind of reflected that. But Black Panther,
That's I don't know. It sounds kind of like a Coming to America style.
it's very similar. So what happens is Black Panther. It's a long story. I'm
I'm
going to rush
I'm
through it.
I'm glad that you said it sounds similar because I almost didn't say that because am I just being racist right now?
No, no, it's not racist. It's established that. So Black Panther at
Right.
some point kind of adopts a child in New York. The child is end up getting killed by some kind of random event. The Black Panther comes from Wakanda to New York to investigate it, and then Everett Ross is in charge of making sure that the Black Panther doesn't do Black Panther stuff. And the Black Panther
Mm.
ends up doing Black Panther stuff, but it ends up happening is the Mephisto, the devil himself, kind of is why the young girl died, and then it's crazy. It's like actually a crazy event. It's good. It's good though. It's good though. But anyway, getting off
You
track.
you just brought up Mephisto and against the Black Panther is there like a tighter connection between Mephisto and Spider-Man than Black Panther or
No, Mephisto has some connections to pretty much all the Marvel. Like at some point, Mephisto showed up in a ton of other
okay.
comics. So that's like
So
it's
he's kind of
typical.
like a general. He'll
Yeah,
fight all the superheroes,
he's a general jerk, and like he's always causing some problems.
right?
But anyway, we're way off track now. But Everett Ross is from a Black Panther comic, and he's a lot of fun, that comic.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I was Martin Freeman's kind of a heavy hitter actor to bring in for what seems like a very side character, so I was kind of curious
Yeah,
about that.
and yeah, in the comics he's funny, and then the movie he's not. So it is what it is.
And Martin Freeman could definitely play that character funny if he wanted to.
Yeah, I would have
So
liked it.
that's strange. Yeah. Okay. By the way, I've told you I really like Edgar Wright movies.
Mm.
Martin Freeman is in Edgar Wright's The World's End. So
Oh, I should
yet
watch that.
another reason to check that movie out.
Okay. Uh, all right, what you got?
All right. Spider-Man and his web shooters. And this was a point of conversation when I was watching the movie with my family. So in this movie, he's got web shooters that he designed and created the goo that goes in them, whatever, to
Mhm.
create the spider webs.
Mhm.
Have there been other movies where it's like just a natural ability he has that he's augmented somehow? And how does that relate to the comics? What can you tell us about that?
In in the original Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 by Sam Raimi, he has organic web shears in his arms. So that's in those 3
Really?
movies. Yes.
I did not remember. I thought for sure he had web shooters in those first three
No.
movies.
It was actually a huge bone of contention. Because when the original Spider-Man movie came out with what's his face? What's his actor's name?
Toby Maguire?
Yeah, when Tobey Maguire, people got really upset because one of the things about Peter Parker is that he's supposed to be smart. And he was
I
so
thought I
smart.
remember him creating web shooters
No, he
in the
didn't. No, he
no.
didn't.
Hmm.
And
All
so
right.
because he didn't create his own web shooters, people got really upset.
Hmm.
In the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, he does create his own web shooters, which people liked.
Okay.
Marvel did retcon it so that Spider-Man went through a biological experience where his abilities were enhanced in the comics, and he ended up getting organic web shooters. And it was supposed to bridge the gap between the movies and the comics. But after Civil War, they retconned it back to where he had. So they said, okay, he made his web shooters. No, he has organic web shooters. No, he makes his web shooters again. And making his web shooters are really important because it shows how smart and industrious Peter Parker is. I
Right.
think, and I am on team web shoot. I'm on team make your web shooters. I like the
Yeah,
idea that he makes those. I think
I,
it's
I'm
important.
I'm on that team so much that I did not remember him not having web shooters in the Tobey Maguire series.
Yeah. So that's that. And I mean, of course, in Civil War, Tony Stark probably takes or has his team. I mean, Peter Parker's smart, but Stark is smart as well. So he
Tony was
quite
very impressed that he made his own web shooters in
yeah.
this.
So he was able to take the formula and make it for him. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That answers that. You did bring up the Friday AI earlier, talking about the big battle between Cap and Iron Man at the end of the movie.
Hmm.
That's a replacement for Jarvis, right? Since
Yeah,
Jarvis has now become
the
Vision
vision.
in the MCU.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that there isn't a Friday AI in the comics.
I don't think so. Um,
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't 100%. I'm going to say no, but I could be wrong. I can actually tell you in 3 seconds if I'm right or not. Okay.
Right
There is, but it wasn't until after the movies.
after the movie, right? Yeah, that doesn't count. All right.
No, you
Yeah.
know
So
what?
I
I'm wrong. I'm wrong. It showed
yeah.
up in 2002. So she was a VI. She was a virtual intelligence.
Hmm. Okay.
So I'm wrong. So no, yes, she is in the comics. I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
When was the first Iron Man movie?
2000. I don't know. Hang on. Uh, 2008. So yeah, so Spry's been around. Well, I didn't know that. So that's pretty.
Interesting.
Spry's
Okay.
been around quite as well. It was a virtual. It was a virtual secretary.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. It's probably the inspiration for Jarvis. Then I'm kind of curious why they went with Jarvis in the first Iron Man movie instead of Friday.
Maybe because I don't know. That's a great question. These are all great questions. I didn't know that.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Cool. All right. Well, I think that answers everything on that one. Um. Okay. In this movie, we see Ant Man again.
Yep.
He comes from one of my favorite Marvel movies. We see Big Ant-Man in this movie. I think you already told us Big Ant-Man is actually called Giant Man.
Yes.
Okay. He moves kind of slow in this movie.
Well, I mean, so yeah, you would think that if you grew big, you would still have the agility and mobility you would normal size. But I think if you look at if you so you play video games and you've watched like superhero movies, but playing video games is a better description. If
Mhm.
you have a video game and you have like you have like let's say you have an ability, you always have to have a trade off. Like you get super strength and you're really big, but you're slow, right?
Right.
Or hey, you're super small and you're fast, but you're weak, you know, and like you and most people when they're playing video games, they try to find a good balance between all that to a point where you have a certain kind of speed, but you also have a certain level of strength. But so they couldn't have, Scott Lang become giant, but then be able to be super fast. It would look funny on screen, first of all,
Mhm.
and it would also overpower him. So that's why he's slow like that.
Should he be faster when he's small then?
He is fast when he's small, though. He's super quick.
Seems like he runs at normal speed. I don't know.
He bounces around. He just no, he's fast.
He does. He can jump really far when he's small. That's
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, he's super. Yeah, he's fast.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
really like that fight. I really like that airport fight scene. And when I saw, and I didn't know that Scott Lang would go big. That was a big surprise to me. And when it happened, I flipped out. I was super excited because it's like once again the MCU is dedicating itself to the comics again, and having him get big like that is just a nice call out to the comics. It's really fun.
Right. Okay. There were several more Winter Soldiers in this movie.
Hmm.
They never really did much, but we saw that there were five other Winter Soldiers kept in a bunker
Hmm.
on ice, basically.
Yeah.
Is that
No, no. I
comic
mean,
accurate or?
there's tons of instances in the comics where you have super powered villains everywhere, but there's
I
no
mean,
like
Winter Soldiers, like from the
no,
same program
no, no,
as
no,
the
no,
Winter
no,
Soldier.
no, 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 no.
So he was kind of a one-off. They were like, "Oh, we did really great with that. Let's try to do the Red Room and kidnap a bunch of
Yeah,
orphaned girls and stuff like that."
yeah. So there wasn't like I mean, and yeah, so there wasn't, and to be honest with you, so we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you look at Falcon and the Winter Soldier, if we look at Iron Man, no, if we look at maybe Iron Man 3 kind of counts. If we look at all these different movies, there's all this the super soldier serum is not that hard to get. And like we keep seeing these instances that they keep having it. And like I just at some point I'm getting kind of tired of it, to be honest with you. It's like I understand that Captain America was a super soldier, the best one they had, and the formula worked. But we keep seeing instances where the formula's out there, and I think it's crazy that Howard Stark had the formula,
Right.
and then and then Hydra stole it, and then they had their own formula, and it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. That's another of like, back to the first two Iron Man movies where your villain's basically a copy and paste of your hero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, what else you got?
One thing I did not like about this movie, and I just want you to comment on it, is I did not like the scene. Well, uh, leading up to this, a lot of people were kind of talking about Cap's shield, and they're like, it doesn't really belong to you. I think Black Widow says that it's the government's property. And then at the end of the movie, Cap leaves his shield with Tony because Tony says, my dad made that. You don't deserve it. I did not like that at all. What do you think about it?
Uh, i- in
That's
order
Cap's shield, is my point. It's
in
it's
order for
Cap's shield. Anybody that thinks differently, you know.
in order for you to appreciate it more, you have
Hmm.
to take it away. And that's
Hmm.
the truth. I mean, like it hurts your heart when Captain America doesn't have his shield.
Yeah.
But when he gets it back, it's gonna feel great. So that's all. That's it. So yeah, I mean, there's a storyline where Captain America is in a U-boat or a submarine, and he has to save a sailor, and he uses a shield to protect himself from something, and the boat blows up, but Cap and the girl is still alive. So Captain America is holding this woman, but his shield, he's underwater, and his shield is hurling itself down to the abyss, and so Captain America is swimming to catch it. He's swimming to get it, and he's almost got it, but then he looks over and the person he's holding is like suffering. Like you could tell that she's about to like, die. So he has to make a
Mm.
choice: get the shield or save her. So of course he saves her. But then we don't get that shield back for like a year in comic terms. And,
Ugh.
and so so for a year, Captain America doesn't have his shield. And no, I felt the same way. Like the day, like when I saw it, and he's like, it's a great scene at the end. There's a picture, a comic scene of him on a boat, and Sailor's like, "Hey, where's your shield?" And then all Steve says is, "It's gone," and that's all he says. And you can feel the heartbreak, and like we're heartbreaking, he's heartbroken.
Right.
So when he does drop the shield and doesn't have it anymore, everybody is upset. But when he gets it back at Endgame, it's such a great little scene and so much fun, and you're so happy. So people are going to manipulate you in entertainment media. That's like easy manipulation. Like first,
Yeah.
give you something that you love. Second, create an emotional bond to it. Third, take it away from you. And like that
Right.
kind of manipulation. Like I'm used to that because like that's what we teach in writing. We
Yeah.
teach
Right.
we teach that it exists, but also that we teach you that that's a trope that you might want to not use because everybody over abuses it. But
Yeah.
in
Well, it's like
movies,
those. It's like those logical fallacies that everybody teaches you about.
mhm, everybody
Um,
uses it in the world, but you're not supposed to use it in academia because you're too smart. Um,
exactly. Yeah, those things work really well. And That's
no,
why they're.
yeah,
That's why they had to call them out as logical fallacies.
yeah, logical fallacies, emotional manipulation works super well against uneducated people, which is most people. And so,
Right.
and even me, I've studied storytelling for a living, and I saw that scene where he drops the shield, and I'm like, well, that's a really good story beat. That's very well done, smart. But also, I'm thinking, I want him to have a shield. Like, that sucks. This
Right.
sucks. But
Well, you mentioned on an earlier episode that you want to have a version of the shield in
I
your
do,
house someday.
I do, I really do.
I think I get where you're coming from now.
Yeah, I don't know what it.
After doing this podcast with you and rewatching these movies and seeing that scene, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. At some point, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get my like a little dungeon basement game room. My
Hmm.
wife is fighting me tooth and nail not to have that thing because she knows if I get it, I'm never leaving. Um, so it's going to be a slow process to get it. I don't
Have
know if
you
I.
looked in to see if there's places that sell replica shields, and
Oh
are they
yeah, you
like
can
made
get 'em-
out of
you.
metal and everything?
Yeah, you can get them online, no problem. They're expensive, but you can get them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah, you
You
should
should
do
get
it.
one. You should get one
Ah,
for Christmas.
nah,
Ask for
I don't want to take that from you. You should get one.
we both can have them. It's not like
Yeah.
we both can have our little Captain America shields. But no, yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, at the end of the movie, the Avengers are completely broken up, and this is really important because Thanos is coming, and the Avengers are not ready, and that's like really important to understand that if the Avengers would have stayed together like they are and not have
Hmm.
any kind of problems, when Thanos showed up, they would have easily defeated him. Easily defeated him.
Hmm.
If Iron Man and everybody's working together as a big team and Thanos showed up, they wouldn't have stopped him. Like they would have stopped him, no problem. But because they were separated, because like the Vision had to fight on his own and Wanda had to fight without on her own, and then because Iron Man had to fight by himself because Spider Man didn't have the proper training, he had all these different people. He had the Hulk who didn't have control of his powers. Thor wasn't on planet. So you have all these different people separated, and then when Thanos came along, it makes complete sense that he's just able to destroy them, and like it wasn't even difficult. But yeah, if Civil War wouldn't have happened and they all were set together as a big team, it Thanos wouldn't have any issues.
Okay. Yeah, you make a good point there. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell us before we get into the credits?
It's not really. Sharon Carter is in this movie, but she is not used very well at all, which always breaks my heart. Baron
Yeah,
Zemo,
we thought it was very weird that uh
yeah, she shouldn't have been in
Steve
this
and her
movie.
had a kiss in this movie.
She shouldn't have been in this movie. Baron Zemo is in this. I like how they approach Baron Zemo in the movie much better than how they approached him in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Just to kind of keep that in mind. But he's good in this movie. I like him. The raft they go to, that's like a super prison that is in the comics as well. I'll put that in the show notes.
Did they
Uh,
ever put the Avengers in it?
During the Civil War, they put them in a prison in the negative zone in a different dimension. So they didn't put them in the Raft. They put
Is
them
the
in.
negative zone associated in any way with the TVA?
Yes, sort of. Um, Kinda. The negative. I've mentioned the negative zone before, but the negative zone is the opposite of our universe. So not really. No, no, no. It's not. It's not connected at
Were
all.
they in the null zone or the negative zone? The
Null
TVA
zone. Null
null
zone.
zone. Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And
So
that's it.
similar concept, but different zone,
Yeah. But no,
basically.
no, no. Your questions pretty much answered all that stuff. We pretty much hit. Yeah. No.
All right, so
And
we got a mid.
we get a mid credit scene and a post credit. So go ahead.
Yep. All right, so the mid credit scene is the Winter Soldier in Wakanda.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to tell us about that?
There's not much to tell except it's just previewing Black Panther's coming. So that's pretty much it. So it's not really doing much else. I
How did he
like that.
get there?
That's a good question. In my mind, Tony's like Captain America could just somehow connects to T'Challa, and then T'Challa flies him there.
Yeah. Okay.
But I like the friendship between T'Challa and Steve, Captain America and Black Panther. There is
Mm-hmm.
that friendship exists in the comics as well. I
Oh,
like the
okay.
fact
That's
they
cool.
view each other as kind of like as equals. Everybody respects T'Challa a lot in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's almost feared. So it's kind of fun to see him like that. It's again, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, who passed away.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen him do. We'll talk about this more when we do Black Panther, but it's just kind of heartbreaking to see him on screen, and knowing that he
Yeah, I
passed
guess
away.
now knowing that he's not with us anymore
Yeah,
helps me uh accept that he's at least in two movies in the MCU instead of just having it as standalone.
he's in 4 movies in the MCU.
Is he in four movies?
He's in
Oh,
he's in Civil War. He's in Black Panther. He's in Infinity War and Endgame.
yeah, that's right. He is in Endgame. Okay. All right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just rest in peace.
Well, he at least got more screen time before.
Yeah, he has tons of screen. Yeah, yeah. But no, there's nothing really into that scene except to kind of preview that Black Panther, the movie's coming, and of course everybody got and Black Panther was a massive success. So,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
you hate it, Marvel did the right thing for them.
To be clear, I hated
Y-
them introducing the character
Yes,
before his own movie.
yeah, you don't hate
Yeah.
the Black Panther. You just hate the
Right.
how they do it.
Right. Yeah. All right. And then the end credit scene is with Spider-Man in his room. He's got his web slinger on his wrist.
Yeah. Yep.
Activates something that he didn't really know was there. Aunt May comes in the room, they talk about stuff, and then when she leaves, he's got some kind of a Spidey signal coming out of his web slinger.
Hmm.
The heck is that?
I don't know. Most people don't know, but Spider-Man has a utility belt. It's
Like
under his,
Batman.
like very much like Batman. So the utility belt holds. So if you look at, so let's say you take the wrist and you look at the web shooters. The
Yeah.
web shooters are on his wrist, and there's supposed to be in the comics. There's a little block, like a little metal block, probably a half an inch to an inch, and that holds the web fluid. So he has a whole belt of them around his waist. So whenever he runs out, he takes it off. He gets a new one. He pops it in. On that belt is
I don't
also
think I've ever noticed that.
yeah. I'll find some stuff in the show notes for you. On his belt is a place that holds his spider trackers. These little spider trackers, and also is a kind of a lamp or a flashlight on his belt, so he can actually click on his belt, and like a little Spider-Man logo will shoot out from the belt. And so not many people notice that.
What's he
But
use that for?
just to kind of I don't know. There's a couple different cool scenes when he uses it. That's kind of neat. That's like, oh, it's the Spider-Man logo. Oh my goodness! But no, I don't know. But
Okay.
that's a shout out to that, and I think it's a really cool shout out because only comic book old school heads know that even existed. So that's
All
what
right.
it is.
He doesn't have a belt in any of the movies, does he?
No
Like
belt.
even the earlier
Nope.
two
No,
two
no belt.
versions?
Nope. No
Okay.
belt. Nope.
What about the cartoons?
What
I
cartoon?
don't
Oh, on the light.
No, like the belt. Does he have a belt in
Oh, in the cartoons, he does have a belt. Yes.
I don't remember that at all.
I'll I'll dig into the show notes so you can see it. So it's really fun. And so there's I know we're running out of time, but there's a couple different things. So if you look at Spider-Man's suit, if you look at how the Spider-Man eyes are, you see how the eyes would narrow or widen depending. There's
Yeah.
actually a huge fight over Spider-Man's costume design. Some people like the narrow eyes, and some people like the wide eyes. And what Marvel did here was gave him both, so his eyes widen and narrow according to what they want to do. I thought that was really clever, and really well done. But old
In
school,
the movie, they explained that that
it's like an
helps him
iris.
focus because
Yeah,
he's distracted.
yeah, it's
Like
like a
he
little
like
eye.
has ADHD or something like that.
He has heightened senses, so he has so
Oh
much
yeah, yeah, yeah,
information
yeah.
coming in.
Heightened senses, right, right.
And so like it would narrow when he needs it to, widen when he doesn't need to. But the real reason is it allows them to kind of manipulate his costume a little bit to show more emotion, but also old school heads like that narrow eyes, so it's a lot to it. And Spider-Man's costume design is a classic costume. You don't screw with it much, and so I like the current costume. It looks really good.
Yeah, look good. What about the goggles and the makeshift costume that we saw earlier in the movie?
The makeshift costume's terrible. But no, but if you're a poor 15-year-old, that's your
Yeah,
costume.
yeah,
Like,
right.
that's what's going to look like. And then when you meet Tony Stark, you're going to get a really cool costume. So it is what it is.
Was there any costumes like that in the comics at all, or do you always have a pretty decent one?
He always had a decent costume. These movies were made, these comic books were made in the 60s, so the cost of living was far lower. So you can make a costume for yourself.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
think that costume was kind of. I think there was a costume kind of like that in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. No, the Tobey Maguire movies and the Amazing Spider-Man movies, the costume is very similar. It's a classic red and blue costume with black webbing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You can't screw Spider-Man's costume too much.
Yeah.
But that's it, really. Civil War, great movie, one of my favorites. Sets us up for the other movies coming out. It sets us up for Black Panther. Sets us up for Spider-Man movies, but it sets us up for the rest of the Avengers movie. Does a great job. Yeah, so it's great. I like.
Yeah.
This is my favorite, hands down.
Yeah. What's our next movie?
I don't know. What is our next movie?
Our
According
next
to
movie is Doctor Strange.
I've only watched Doctor Strange in totality once, so I think this is going to be on the plane. This is going to be my own plane movie. 100%.
I think I've seen it twice, so this will be my third. It's interesting that there's no kind of hints to Doctor Strange at all in any of the prior movies.
There
Like, not
is,
even it.
there is one.
Uh-oh. All right. What I
And
missed?
Captain America Winter Soldier, when they're on the rooftop and they throw that agent over and they break him up, he starts saying this. He's saying how Hydra's watching everybody. He says Doctor Strange's name.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very subtle hint. But yeah, they don't make the same connections with Doctor Strange as they did the other movies.
And there's no like end credits scene with
No.
like Thor's hammer.
I
There
don't think
was.
I don't think they could. There's no room for it, so they don't have a lot of choices, So, but
Yeah.
but yeah, Doctor Strange. Yeah, so yeah, Doctor Strange is next, and then we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and then Spider-Man: Homecoming. Yeah, so we still got a lot of movies to go. We're going through them. We're a pretty good clip, but we got some more to go through.
Yep. All right. So tell your friends about this podcast. Follow us, rate and review wherever you're listening to the podcast. That'll really help out. We're
Yeah,
on YouTube
Yeah, YouTube. We're on
and Twitter.
Yeah, we're on Spotify, right?
Yeah, we're on all those podcast apps.
Yeah.
If we're not on your podcast app, let us know at Super Sideshow on Twitter, and we'll get that fixed.
Yeah, and I'm on Twitter at JSlacks. That's JaySlacks, and Mike's on Twitter as Mike. What is it?
MIKBRE.
Yeah, MRKBRE. Yep. And we're all
Yep.
and the podcast is also on Twitter as well.
Yep, at Super Sideshow.
Yeah. So follow us, ask us questions, send us notes. We'd love to hear from you guys. And even if you're thinking, I listen to this podcast, I like this podcast, but I'm not going to send them a question. Who cares? Send us one anyway. It would just be fun just to hear from you guys and to answer your questions.